Hey guys, thank you for being here with me today as we talk about more books. For those of you who have read, who have watched some of my other videos, you know that I did recently move into this apartment. For some odd reason, I think my OCD was a little off that day. I decided to color code the bookshelves in the apartment, not the one here, because I'm planning on just putting, like, once I read my books, I'm planning on storing them here so I can keep the read and unread separate. But in the family room, I did randomly color code. So I decided to read books based on a color, and that random color this month was pink. So I read some pink books, these pink books, as well as one non-pink book that I will also talk about. If I can reach it, that would be great. This one as well. This was a book club pick. I really don't like the look of color-coded bookshelves, so I'm going to be switching it back, but it took forever to do, so I just need to find the energy to summon to do that. But regardless, we're gonna talk about books today. So, these pink books. Let's talk about this one first. Daisy Jones and the Six. This was all the rage several years ago. Never got to it. It's been on my TBR for a while. Specifically, this author, Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've heard really good things about a lot of her other books as well, so I've been meaning to read her. So glad I did, because I really enjoyed this. One surprising thing I will say about this book is the format, not the writing style, I'd say, yeah, the format that it's written in, which is interview form. So you can see, like, the name of the characters and their answers. I was not at all expecting that, and surprisingly, it works really well for this book. So that doesn't detract at all for me from the reading experience. What's the book about? Daisy Jones is our main character. She is growing up in, I think it's California, the 1970s. This is mostly focused on the 70s music scene. She is a bit of an it girl, very beautiful, gets lots of attention, very charismatic. She doesn't get attention at home very much. Her parents kind of ignore her. They're wealthy, they're always gone, so she seeks that affection elsewhere. She falls into the music scene. She has a really good voice, but she really is in love with writing her own music, writing lyrics. We also follow the Six, which is a band of friends. Two brothers lead it. The main singer is Billy Dunn. He is a bit of a control freak, very talented. So we follow Daisy as she's growing up, as she's getting into music, and also the Six as they're gaining popularity. A producer for the Six decides, I think it would be great to mesh these two together, see if they can, write a song together, write an album together. And this is really the process of that one album. Daisy and Billy both have very strong personalities that clash quite a lot. There's lots of drug issues, lots of addiction issues. We go through the relationships of between Billy and his wife, between Daisy and her boyfriends. It is a book that I feel like has no business being this good when so many of the main characters just have the self-control of like a toddler, I would say. It's always such a shame when you feel like addiction and talent go hand in hand, where you look at a person or an artist and you're like, oh, you could be so great for so many years, but because you got addicted to this thing, you've got this kind of brief shining moment and then you're done. Overall, I thought this was great. I really liked the emotion it captured. The characters were interesting. I loved reading and discovering about the kind of the music scene, what was going on behind the scenes, etc., etc. Good book. I think I give this a 4 stars. Okay, next. Which one do I want to talk about next? Let's tackle this one. Milkman. What an odd book. So this is where to start with this one. No names are used. So the characters we learn about, they're referred to such as middle sister, eldest sister, youngest sister, maybe boyfriend, almost boyfriend. It's very odd. I know I've said that already, but it bears repeating. So this is essentially about the troubles in Ireland, which unfortunately I did not know. I knew that there were a lot of political issues in Ireland that had kind of turned violent through the years, but until I watched like Dairy Girls, and I've read a few books about it now, I did not know it got as bad as it did, and I didn't know that it still continues to this day. Again, shameful of me speaking of my ignorance here, but that's why we read books, is because we learn things. So this is set during that time period, during the Troubles. We focus on a girl. What's her name? Who knows? I think she's middle sister. She is being stalked by the milkman. He's not an actual milkman. There is an actual milkman, but forget about him. We just call this guy the milkman. This is a community, very isolated community, where being different at all is seen as very suspicious, very dangerous. It's a very paranoid community where kind of bombs going off and people being murdered and pets being killed is seen as normal, and it's just kind of everyday occurrences. And the book is really about what constant violence does to a person, and specifically more a community psyche. It's very interesting. I can easily say it's not like any book I've read before. This isn't a book that you finish, at least for me, and I could say like, oh, it's good or bad. There's a lot of humor mixed with the horror, and it's off-putting in a very, I think, purposeful way that the author kind of wanted to portray. A very odd book. It did win, it said that it won the Man Booker Prize. Yeah, I feel like I learned. Yeah, you just kind of have to read this book for yourself, I think, to experience it. I know it's very polarizing with people on Goodreads. I did read reviews, and some people were just like, I don't get this thing at all. I was so confused, and other people think it's really deep. Again, it's not really for me a like or dislike. It's just a different experience reading a book. So if you're into that, give it a try. Next, we're going to tackle this one. There's Someone Inside Your House. I will preface this by saying this was my least favorite of the bunch. It is marketed as a horror. It is about a girl named Makani. She is originally from Hawaii. She's moved to Nebraska for a specific reason we're not given. However, the strong impression is that something really bad happened in Hawaii. She was excommunicated from her friends, from her family, and there's a reason that she can't go back. We're given the impression that it's not going to be good for her safety. So she moves to Nebraska. She's staying with some distant family. Is it a grandmom? I think it's a grandmom. And the way that this author writes Nebraska makes me think that she has something personal against the state, because she writes it with such like loathing. There's like corn everywhere, and she just hates it so much. She moves into this new high school, and surprise, surprise, her classmates start dying one by one in pretty gruesome ways. She becomes friends with the school outcast. His name's Ali, and they decide they're going to try and kind of solve the mystery of what's happening to their classmates, who's murdering them. So I mentioned before, this is marketed as a horror. I personally did not find it at all scary. The action scenes I just felt were really clunky. There's an attempt at the end to go really deep that just ends up being more, I don't want to say humorous than anything else, but it just really didn't work for me. The big bad, the antagonist in this, is, okay, so half the fun of kind of having a horror murder mystery is seeing if you can solve who did it. So the author places potential blame on lots of parties, and oh, it could be this person, it could be that one. Let's look at the clues and see if I can solve it before the book ends. The big bad ends up being a random person that we're never given the POV for. It's not like you would read this book and say, oh, it's that person, and then be proven right or wrong, because the antagonist never factors into it. His or her reasons for the murder is just really dumb. I didn't get at all the murder mystery. This feels like an author who's not meant to writing horror. And I know Stephanie Perkins has written lots of other books that are way, I would say, better received than this one. And if this is her foray into horror, I mean, obviously you're not going to start, like, I definitely don't want to put down her attempt at writing a different genre. I think it's great that authors can say, hey, I've done this genre, I'm going to stretch my legs and I'm going to try something else. For me personally, this just didn't work. There was no tension. I didn't like any of the characters. When any of them died, I didn't feel anything. There are a few fake out deaths that just did not work for me, that felt more cheap than anything else. Maybe other people absolutely love this. If you did, I'm really glad it worked for you. It just didn't for me. Let's talk about another book that didn't work for me very well, and that is Anatomy, a love story. A love story is very confusing to me, because this is not at all a love story unless it's between the main character and her love of becoming a physician. I don't know. Okay, in this book we have two main characters, Jack and Hazel. Hazel is a woman. This is set in the 1800s. She comes from a wealthy family. She's well-to-do, but what she wants most in life is not to get married to someone and have kids, blah, blah, blah. She really wants to be a physician. So that's her. Jack, on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, he's very poor. He is a resurrection man, which is someone who would steal bodies from graves and then sell them to doctors or teachers so that they would be able to do scientific experiments on them, to take them into a classroom to be able to, dissect them and show people, hey, this is the different parts of the human body. I really liked reading about that because I was not aware that resurrection men were a thing. You think nowadays when doctors have bodies that they need for some reason, that there are people who die and they will their body to science. That was not always the case. So when, back in the 1800s, when they needed bodies for one thing or another to do tests on, they would be forced to pay a kind of unscrupulous character to dig them up and bring them to them, which you might be able to tell is probably not the safest job. So Hazel tries to attend a prestigious university. She's set on becoming a physician. She is turned away because she's female. However, she does make an agreement with the famous Dr. Beecham that if she can pass the physician's exam, she's not allowed to attend lectures, but if she can pass the exam, then he will allow her to become a physician and attend the college. So she obviously needs some bodies to study. She makes a deal with Jack to dig up bodies for her. She will pay him. That's how the relationship is formed. However, things get dangerous because resurrection men around the city start disappearing. So I already spoke a bit about things I liked with this book. The writing wasn't bad. I like learning things about the time period. I like that you have a woman in this time period who wants things that women typically can't have and is willing to fight for it. However, a lot of kind of pivotal moments in this book feel very unearned. Specifically, there's one scene where the main antagonist is talking to Hazel, like, you out of all people I know would understand me, and I'm prepared to kind of give you this enormous gift. I won't say what it is because that'll give a lot of the book away. And it's just like they've met one time before and they talk for 5 minutes, and suddenly he's like, I'm so sure of your character and I know you're the one who deserves this. And it just feels very cheap. It is also a book with a very slow start. Again, it's not a bad book. There were definitely things I enjoyed about it. This is the first in the series. I don't think I will be continuing with the series. I don't think I liked it that much. It's a beautiful cover, but specifically like the love story, when it says a love story, I mean, I'm wondering if the author did that specifically. It's about, I mean, the title is Anatomy. So is it about Hazel and her love of anatomy? Because if it's trying to say it's a love story between Jack and Hazel, there is romance there, but it is very secondary, which definitely don't mind that. I'm fine with it being more about Hazel and kind of self-discovery. Yeah, for me, there were just more things that I didn't care for in this book than things that really wanted me to, like, made me want to continue. So there's that one. Next, we have Instructions for a Heat Wave. This is another author that I've heard a lot about. First book I read of hers, very glad I did. This is kind of reminds me of, what was it, Oh William? That is another kind of slice of life family drama book that I was not expecting to like near as much as I did, because that's typically not what I go for. Reminded me a lot of this one. The writing was just really good. I don't know what it was. There's just some inherent quality about it that I really enjoyed. So this takes place, you might guess, during a heat wave. And the father of 3 children, 3 grown children, he disappears. No one knows where he's gone to. So the 3 children come back from the different places that they live, their different lives. They've all gone their separate ways. They come together with the mother to try and figure out what's happened to dad. Where is dad? Is he hurt? Did he run away with the money? What's going on? This book really is about family life, family tension, relationships between couples with their children, not being where you thought you would be in life at the age that you are now. For all those things, kind of those mundane, everyday things, it really kept my attention. It went really quickly. Yeah, it's difficult to explain because it's not a big action book. It's not like, oh, the main protagonist fights a dragon and then saves this person and the world is at stake. It's a quiet book. It's an everyday book, very relatable, but it's really good. So I liked it quite a lot. I really like Maggie O'Farrell's writing style. Next, let's get into what was probably my favorite book of this small pile, which is Homegoing. This was such a freaking good book. Love the writing, so emotional, love the characters. So this is like the very definition of a family saga. We start the book in Ghana and we focus on 2 sisters whose lives take very different paths. So one of them is married to an Englishman and one of them is sold into slavery and shipped to America. And then we follow, I think, 7 generations of the family in both directions. So for as little time, like you can see, it's not an enormous book. For as little time as you are able to spend with each character, they are so well, like, fleshed out and fully realized, and the emotional connection you get with those characters is some writers can just do that. They can give you just this little, I don't know what it is, these little descriptions and these little connections that really make certain characters stick in your mind. Really deep inner lives. Again, beautiful writing. So I think I gave this one as well 4-star. I can't remember if this was 4 or 5 stars, but I remember finishing this and just being like, wow, like, that was really good. Let's talk about the last book, which is not a Pink book, The Last Cuentista. This is a book read pick. I did not pick this. The book club I went to did. I will say this is a YA. Let's start with that. This is YA. Going into that, if you have read, or why do I keep saying read? Because we're talking about books. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that's not a great start for me liking it. If I say it's middle grade, it's YA. This is about a girl named Petra. The world is ending. Petra's family are chosen, her mother, father, and brother are chosen to be on this ship that's going to take them away to a safe planet where they can kind of recolonize and live. So Petra is put into this cryogenic sleep because they need to travel like 400 years to get there, something like that. Something goes wrong with hers that some tension builds. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm just going to kind of allude to what I'm saying. Something goes wrong with hers, and I thought that they were going to do something really interesting, and I was really excited at that point for where the book's going to go. And if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And then it just kind of ends, and nothing happens. However, Petra wakes up. Something is wrong. They're not where they're supposed to be. The ship that was carrying like the leaders and the politicians was destroyed. So there's this new order in place. And the one woman who's in charge, I don't remember her name. I don't know if she has a name. She has a different vision for their future. She did something to the other people who were in this cryogenic sleep that makes them more into kind of robotic zombies that have no memories of their past. However, because of the thing that went wrong with Petra's, she does remember her past. So she's tasked with kind of scurrying about the ship, trying to maintain her cover, trying to undermine the evil leader woman and find out where her parents and her brother are. That's mostly the kind of the action in this book. The things that didn't work for me. The secondary characters were, for me, all interchangeable. None of them were particularly interesting. One of the main draws in this was supposed to be the kind of conveying the importance of stories, of storytelling, of embracing your past and embracing differences. Yes, all very important messages. However, I feel like that I felt like I was reading something that had been done 100 times before in slightly better ways, like not in this book. To be fair, if I was 12 years old and I was reading a lot of these tropes for the first time, obviously that's going to have a different impact on me. This is targeted at a younger audience, so it is obviously going to have a different impact on said audience than it did on me. One of the other main things is the stories that Petra tells. She tells these stories, kind of this Mexican folklore, to these other children in the hopes that they will remember their past. And the children are addicted to her stories. They love them so much, which is very ironic because I found them just really boring overall. There is one story she tells at the very end that I really enjoyed because it's incorporated a lot of the struggles that they had been to into the actual folklore, changing it in a way that kind of conveyed hope for their future. I really like that part. But the other stories I just kind of would skim over because I didn't find them very captivating. Yeah, overall this book just wasn't for me, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously it won the Newbery, so it was for a lot of other people. For those who read it and enjoyed it, I'm really glad I'm glad people can enjoy books that I didn't. In me giving my honest opinion of books, I'm never trying to like slam the author or the work or anything like that. I'm just saying it didn't work for me. But it's a beautiful cover, I will say. So that's it. Those are the books that I read recently. I'm going to be doing, because October, Halloween is coming up, I'm going to be reading some scary, spooky books I'm so excited for. So if you guys are into that, keep an eye out for the video. Thank you for joining me for this one, for my pink books, and I will see you guys next time.